Hello and welcome. Chris from Missouri here, bringing you another video about vintage baseball cards. And it is Thursday again. And on my channel on Thursdays, I do a little episode called Just a Bit Outside. And it is showing baseball cards, rookie cards, of players that aren't in the Hall of Fame. They're close, maybe, of being in. And matter of fact, I'm showing who I believe are the top 5 players at their position that's not in the Hall of Fame. And I've shown a lot of cards so far. And I always try to show one that's not considered maybe in the top 5, but maybe it has some kind of the player has some kind of meaning to me, or maybe his card has some kind of meaning. And today I'm going to show you 4 cards, and I'm going to go ahead and get with it today and show you these cards. And so just let me know what you think. And I tell you, I'm enjoying doing this series because those of you that are watching this, you guys should read some of the comments if you're not reading the comments. And I'm not able to answer every one of your guys' comments because, my gosh, you guys are putting some thought into this and really making me work and making me think, and I love it. Matter of fact, I had a guy on our last video was telling me, the eye test thing is silly, and this is silly, and this is silly. But man, I like this series. So I can take a little bit of criticism, if you don't agree with me, let me know in the comments. If there's somebody that I haven't showed that you want me to show, if I have that rookie card of that player, I'll try to show it. So let me go ahead and get started here. First one off, who I think's the top 5 player at his position that's not in the Hall of Fame, is a 1976 card of rookie infielders. And on here, I have Willie Randolph. Now, those of you that are about my age know how good Willie Randolph was, if you followed baseball quite a bit. Now, he was a good-looking baseball player, and I was not a Willie Randolph fan because I was a Royals fan, and in that time period, the Royals and the Yankees, they were big rivalries, and I think the Royals had a second baseman who I keep all my cards up here to my right up high of this series. And I always thought Frank White and Willie Randolph was a good comparison of second baseman. I just think he's not in the Hall of Fame, but let me go over some stats first. He's got a 65.9 WAR. That's pretty good for a second baseman. There's plenty of second basemen that are in the Hall of Fame that's WAR is lower than that. He has over 2,000 hits. Matter of fact, he has 2,210 hits, which is a lot. He didn't have much power, but he has 54 home run, and he has 687 RBI. He was never put in a run producing position in the order, I don't believe. But man, he could move the ball. He had his on base percentage was really pretty good for a second baseman. Had a batting average of 276. That is, you're talking second base kind of hitting. He was a 6-time All-Star, which is quite a bit, but he was playing in a league with some really good second basemen at that time. He was a 1-time Silver Slugger, and like I said, his on-base percentage was really good for second baseman. But again, he's playing at a position that's not well represented in the Hall of Fame. But there's a lot of guys like Willie Randolph that aren't quite in. And I think that's why Willie Randolph's going to remain just a bit outside. I mean, during this series, I'm showing rookie cards and talking about players that aren't in, that their rookie cards is before 1980. But even in that time period, is he better than Lou Whitaker? I don't think so. Is he better than Bobby Grich? I don't think so. I think he's similar to players like Davey Lopes and Frank White. And there's just 4 of those second basemen right there. We're not even talking about Jeff Kent or Chase Utley, some other really good second basemen. So is Willie Randolph going to get in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? This is one of those things that you can say, well, if so and so's in, my man Willie ought to be in the Hall of Fame. When you look at baseball reference, like I like to do, and some of you don't like me doing that, but I do, they compare him. He's most compared to people like Pee Wee Reese, Red Shandings, and Nellie Fox, all three in the Hall of Fame. Do I think Willie Randolph belongs in the Hall of Fame? No. I think he's going to remain just a bit outside. So my next player, and I've talked about him before on various shows, but I haven't talked about him on this one. And this is none other than a catcher that has a 1963 rookie card, and that is Bill Freehan. Now, Bill Freehan is an oddity to me. As I was growing up, I always thought Bill Freehan should be in the Hall of Fame. Matter of fact, he was a baseball guy. And if you guys know what I mean by a baseball guy, and some of you will, he's a guy that played it, but he also lived it and looked it. When he'd go to lunch, I just see, in my mind, I see Billy Freehan talking about baseball. And when I see him going out on dates, in my mind, I see him looking at his girlfriend and talking about baseball. He's one of those guys that wore his baseball uniform and probably sat on a bucket of balls eating sunflower seeds watching batting practice. That's what I picture Bill Freehan to be. Now, he's not in the Hall of Fame. His WAR's only 44.8. He only had 1,591 career hits. He had 200 home runs, and he didn't have 800 RBIs, and he had a batting average of 262. But that doesn't tell all the story about Bill Freehan. See, he was an 11-time All-Star, and I don't think the Hall of Fame ought to be a popularity contest, which the All-Star is. But there is a lot of people, including me, that believes that he was the best American League catcher for the decade of the 60s. Now, there's a couple of them that had a year here, year there. But the all-time catcher to me of the decade of the 60s is Bill Freehan. And if you're the best player at your position for a whole decade, does that warrant you to get in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. He was an 11-time All-Star, a 5-time Golden Glove. 6 times he was in the most valuable player consideration. And he actually was the runner-up in 1968 for the MVP. That was the year of the pitcher, if you guys remember. And his pitching mate, I believe Denny McLain, got the MVP that year. But he finished runner-up. He retired at a young age at 34, so that might have something to do with it. But when you look at Baseball Reference, the people that he's closest to, it's kind of weird. He's closest to Darrell Porter, who was a very good catcher, Thurman Munson, who I believe should be in the Hall of Fame, and Joe Torre, who is in the Hall of Fame as a manager. Do I think Bill Freehan belongs in the Hall of Fame? Well, this is weird, but 30-year-old Chris says yes, but 57-year-old Chris says he's just a bit outside. Now, going down the list, I've got 2 more cards to show you. A guy that I think has a very good argument for being in the Hall of Fame, center fielder, none other than rookie card of the 1975, Freddie Lynn. And for you Boston Red Sox fans, Boston's nemesis in 75 in the World Series, Eddie Armbruster, is also on that card. Does Fred Lynn belong in the Hall of Fame? Well, I'm talking quick on these, but man, he started off like he was a surefire Hall of Famer. He has a 50.2 WAR. He has 1,960 hits. He has 306 home runs, which is pretty good, along with 1,111 RBI. He has a lifetime batting average of 283. All those pretty good. He was part of an outfield that was incredible. Just think if you had this outfield, with Jim Rice, Freddie Lynn, and Dwight Evans. That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there. He was a 9-time All-Star. He was Rookie of the Year. He was the MVP of that same year. he was 4 times in consideration for MVP. He should have won it. Look this up. Look this up if you would. I believe he should have won the Most Valuable Player award in 1979 as well. Now, I loved watching Freddie Lynn play. He looked like a baseball player again. He's good. All 3 of these guys looked like baseball players, and were good looking baseball players. Now, do I think he belongs in the Hall of Fame? I don't know. Again, I wish I could make that just. I wish all Hall of Famers were. If you had to ask if they're Hall of Famers, then they're not Hall of Famers. But Freddie Lynn has some really good arguments because there's some center fielders in the Hall of Fame that you guys know Freddie Lynn was better. So when you look at Baseball Reference, his two closest players to him was Dave Parker and Larry Doby. Both of them are solid Hall of Famers. Freddie Lynn's a great player. There's a lot of players that might be ahead of him in the outfield. As far as center fielders go, man, he was awful good. I think he also won an MVP of an All-Star game because I remember running late to taking a bat because I was listening to the radio of the American League of the All-Star game, and I was actually rooting for the American League at the time and almost missed my at-bat, or a strike was called because I wasn't at the plate. I was listening to the dang radio. Now, I believe Freddie Lynn is going to stay just a bit outside. Now, the 4th one on my list, I didn't pick him because I thought he was in the top 5, but I'm going to tell you right now, he's in the Hall of Fame, but he needs to be in the Hall of Fame as a player, and I would like to spread the word about this guy. Now, he played for the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm not a St. Louis Cardinal fan because I'm a Royals fan. I'm in the middle of the state, but I root for the Royals. This guy played for the Cardinals. He was a great player for the Cardinals. His name is Joe Torre. Now, Joe Torre was brought up with the Braves, and he played for the Cardinals. But, again, I tell you, I consider him a catcher. He played more games at catcher than he did at first base and third base. But he played over, at least 500 games at 3 different positions, which is pretty good. His WAR, 57.6. He had 252 home runs with 1,185 RBI. For those of you that think of Joe Torre, most of you probably think of him as a manager. But he had 252 home runs and over 1,000 RBI as a player. He had 2,342 career hits. That's a lot of hits, for a catcher especially. He had a lifetime batting average of .297. That is very, very, very respectable. If he'd have hit 300, we probably wouldn't even have this conversation. He won a batting title. He was a 9-time All-Star. He was a 1-time Gold Glove winner. He was a 1-time MVP. He was in consideration for Most Valuable Player for 7 years. He was runner-up Rookie of the Year, and I believe that was to Billy Williams, a Hall of Famer. He was just a great player. He wasn't a manager. Matter of fact, I say this to my Cardinal fans just to rip them. He was a great Cardinal player. He was an MVP with the Cardinals. He was a manager, but apparently not good enough a manager for the Cardinals, so they got rid of him, and he went on to become one of the greatest managers of all time. And, Yadier Molina played 15 more games than him. No, here's how I did that. I compared his stats to the Cardinal favorite, Yadier Molina. You know how you do it in the Baseball Reference. And of all those stuff that you decide, you compare them to who's better here, who's better there, the only thing that Yadier Molina beat Joe Torre in, He had 15 more games played, and that's not much. That's not much. And he had more stolen bases than Joe Torre. Now, when I think of Yadier Molina, stolen bases does not come to mind. But those were the only two categories that he was higher than Joe Torre. Now, Ted Simmons is in the Hall of Fame. I'm not so sure Ted Simmons is a better Hall of Fame candidate than Joe Torre. When you look at in the Baseball Reference who Joe Torre compares to the most, is Ted Simmons and Ryne Sandberg, two pretty good Hall of Famers. Do I think Joe Torre is going to get in the Hall of Fame? I'm going to say he is in the Hall of Fame, but as a player, I'm going to say no, because people are already going to consider him a Hall of Famer, and they wouldn't. I don't think they'll come back and vote on him as a player. I don't even know if they do that. Let me know if they do that. But those are four great players. All four of those players, Willie Randolph, Bill Freehan, Fred Lynn, and Joe Torre, are great players. Do they belong in the Hall of Fame? You tell me. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you think. I love the fact that you guys that are watching this, that most of you, I hope most of you are having as much fun as I am coming up with these cards. Now remember, guys, it's just a hobby. Collect what you like.